Well, I'm in Macclesfield tonight at the Picture Drone in the centre of Macclesfield. And I've been finding out what the autumn statement means, not just for the people of Macclesfield, but for you at home as well. The Chancellor unveiled today a boost for millions of workers' take-home pay, cutting the rate of national insurance by 2 percentage points. Jeremy Hunt says that means people on an average salary of £35,000 a year will save more than £450. However, economists have been pointing out that the overall tax burden, that's how much tax people actually pay, will remain at a record high because of the freeze on tax thresholds. Well, let's take a look at some of today's key measures that the Chancellor announced. Well, the Chancellor announced a cut in the main rate of employee national insurance from 12 to 10%. That takes effect on January the 6th. He's also increasing universal credit and other benefits by 6.7%. That comes into effect from April. It's going to be in line with inflation. And the full new state pension, that is going up by 8.5%. And there was an extension of tax relief for business. Full expensing is going to be made permanent. That means for every £1 million a company invests, it will get £250,000 off its tax bill. For the self-employed, Class 2 national insurance is being abolished altogether, and the national living wage is going up to £11.44 an hour. Here's Beth Rigby.
An autumn statement for growth from a government and a party in decline and trying to turn its fortunes around before a general election.
Is this the last chance to win an election, Chancellor? Is this the last roll of the dice? Is this enough, Chancellor?
He certainly hopes so, clutching his autumn statement and hoping its contents can convince voters. The headline offer a 2 percentage point cut to national insurance for January.
That change will help 27 million people. I'm introducing urgent legislation to bring it in from January the 6th. So people can see the benefit in their payslips at the start of the new year.
And for businesses, an £11 billion tax break for those investing in machinery and equipment.
I will today make full expensing permanent. That is the largest business tax cut in modern British history.
The message crystal clear.
We cut taxes to help bigger businesses invest. We cut taxes to help smaller businesses grow. We cut taxes for the self-employed who keep our country running.
But reality's somewhat different to rhetoric. Whatever he said at the dispatch box, independent forecasts show the overall tax burden will still be growing and we're all still being taxed more. But this Chancellor wanting to give voters an immediate hit.
We will increase the full new state pension, increase universal credit, increase the national living wage.
Labour arguing small giveaways now is all too little, too late.
The questions that people will be asking at the next election and after today's autumn statements are simple. Do me and my family feel better off after 13 years of Conservative government? In fact, does anything in Britain work better today than when the Conservatives came into office 13 years ago?
Hi, Beth. Nice to see you.
Statement delivered now for the messaging, but is it all smoke and mirrors? It sounds like a tax giveaway, but you know and I know the NI cut is worth £9 billion. It's dwarfed by the £45 billion you are taking as people get pulled into higher tax bands because you have frozen thresholds, and by wage rises as well. Overall, have you taxed more or cut taxes more?
We have put taxes up because it was the right thing to do to support families. Hang on, will you let me answer the question, Beth? Because it was the right thing to do to support families and businesses through the pandemic and energy shock. We said that when we could afford to do so, provided it didn't hurt the battle against inflation, which is also eroding people's incomes, we would start to bring them down.
Are taxes going up or down under this government?
Taxes have gone up, and we're starting to bring them down.
Just so voters are clear about when you say you're a low-tax party, that's the reality. Taxes will have gone up.
When I had a chance to lighten the tax burden, I'm a Conservative. I believe in doing so.
What this statement does do is calm a restive Tory backbench, at least for now.
What he has managed to do is satisfy colleagues who are not prepared to vote for any new taxes that increase the overall tax burden. We've broken away from that. I think what the Chancellor described as a death spiral of ever-increasing taxes. Would I have loved him to go further? Yes, but I'll take the win today.
This was an autumn statement from a government firmly in election mode. 20 billion of personal and business tax cuts announced. It was, if you like, another reset moment from a stuttering government. But the Chancellor has a problem. Taxes in Britain are still on course to hit a post-war high, and all of our taxes are still going up. And that makes the pitch of being the party of low taxes a very hard sell to voters indeed. The government is hoping voters will notice a bit of extra cash in their pockets, at least in the short term. If there was ever a sign an election is coming soon, that could be it. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Westminster.
Let's bring in our political correspondent Gurpreet Narwan, who's with me here in Macclesfield. And Gurpreet, this was seen as a big giveaway by the Chancellor. Is it as good as it sounds?
Yeah, so the Chancellor wanted to frame this as we're a government that's sorted out the economy, we've got inflation down, and now we've got room for some tax cuts.
Yeah.
Fine, but there are some competing narratives to all of this. If you take a step back and look at the broader picture, well, none of those three things look as good as Jeremy Hunt claims they do. Firstly, on growth, sure, we've avoided a recession, but we've had pretty anemic growth here in the UK. And the OBR, the Office for Budget Responsibility, has actually downgraded our economic growth prospects for the next 2 years. So not great on growth. On inflation, sure, where inflation is due to be halved by the end of the year, which was a target that the government set itself. But again, the OBR, looking beyond this year, is saying it's actually going to take a lot longer for us to get back down to the 2% target, Bank of England's 2% target, than initially thought. So actually not that great on inflation either. And then on taxes, yeah, we've got the 2p cut in national insurance for working people, which is a tax cut to the tune of about £9 billion. But it doesn't make much of a dent in the £45 billion tax increase the government has implemented in the form of fiscal drag, which is freezing those income tax thresholds, which means more and more people are being dragged into the higher rate of income tax. And this is before we even get onto spending. Public services are due for a £19 billion real terms pay cut, real terms cut rather. So people are asking themselves, well, am I meaningfully going to be better off?
Does it feel better?
I'm afraid to say the answer is probably no.
Yeah, OK, Gurpreet. Thank you, Gurpreet. Now with a dose of realism there. Thank you very much. Well, if the Chancellor struck an upbeat tone, it was in contrast to that of the fiscal watchdog, the Office for Budget Responsibility, the OBR that Gurpreet was referring to. They warned today that in the next year we could see the largest reduction in living standards since records began. Our economics and data editor, Ed Conway, has been crunching numbers.
Well, the autumn statement really begins with the story of the economy, the story of growth, economic growth, how much things are improving or indeed getting worse. Last time around, this is showing you GDP, economic growth in the coming years, and the forecast that we got from the Office of Budget Responsibility back in March, OK? And it was going to be a recession in this year and then much stronger growth going out into the future. This time around, let's bring on those latest figures. Better in 2023, so no recession, 0.6% growth. But look at the following years. Weaker in 2024, much weaker in 2025, and then getting back to more or less trend. That's disappointing because less growth means less in the way of tax revenue. It means that basically you're not having that feel-good factor, and we'll come back to that in just a second. However, the cost of living crisis, of course, this has been the big story for us over the last few years. And here again, the forecast from the OBR, this was last time back in March, it's subtly changed, but subtly and really importantly in this case, because while they think inflation is coming down, it's not getting down quite as fast as it was previously, so down to around 2% rather than 0%. And higher inflation means more people being drawn into those higher tax brackets, which is really significant. And when you look at tax, obviously we did have those tax changes from the Chancellor, But have a look at this. This is the tax burden. It's showing you just how much tax we're paying across the economy, all taxes, so personal taxes, but also business taxes. And have a look. Last time around, it was expected to get up really quite high. This time, before all of those tax cuts, particularly the national insurance cuts, were integrated by the government, it looked like it was heading up here, pretty much into the stratosphere. After those tax cuts are incorporated, that line is a bit lower. However, if we kind of draw a line, taking it all the way back to the 1940s, it is still, the tax burden is still going to be at the highest level since at least 1948. So while Jeremy Hunt wants to call this a tax-cutting autumn statement, in practice, this government is raising taxes, raising the incidence of taxes. But in a way, perhaps the most important of all the charts is this one, because it's showing you whether you're getting better off each year or worse off. It's household disposable income, pound in your pocket. And for most of history, again, we're looking back to the 1950s in this case, for most of history, it was going up, up, up each year. This is a growth rate. But now look, this is what was forecast last time around by the Office of Budget Responsibility. A grim 2 years, the worst squeeze that we'd ever had before. Now, the latest figures, they're a little bit better in this year, but the squeeze goes on for one extra year, into that election year and potentially beyond. And still, it is the biggest fall in our standard of living since the 1950s. That is the backdrop, really, to this autumn statement. That's the big economic story. And when the Chancellor talks about trying to get the feel-good factor back, it's very hard to do it against a backdrop of such severe strain in the economy.
As does come on the UK tonight, I'm going to be talking to some of the people of Macclesfield to find out how they feel about some of today's announcements. The COVID inquiry has been hearing how the country's top scientists weren't consulted over the government's Eat Out to Help Out scheme. They found out about it through the TV. Welcome back. You're watching the UK Tonight. On the day the Chancellor delivered his autumn statement, I want to focus on Macclesfield now, which is where we've been all day, and the challenges facing the people who live here. To talk a bit about that, I'm joined by Shannon Lancaster, founder of the Macclesfield Children and Baby Library, and Martin Handy, director of the One Project and a homelessness prevention officer in Greater Manchester. Hello to you both. Thank you so much for coming down to speak to us. And Martin, I'll talk to you first. You've heard what the autumn statement has delivered today. And I want to talk a bit about the work you do in Greater Manchester. The people that you are trying to, let's face it, get a home for, their numbers are increasing. Why is that? Anything in that autumn statement going to make a difference to the people you help?
I think the increase in benefits for people is great. However, I think down to greedy landlords wanting more and more and more is pushing people out there on lower incomes. Those people are then coming to places like One Project Macclesfield for clothing, for food, because they just can't afford life at the moment, and that's very sadly where we live in.
Yeah, and Shannon, this feeds into some of the work you do. You know, we're talking about the increase in benefits today in the autumn statement. That's been seen as good news. But a lot of the people that come to you for help are actually in work. They have jobs, they have families, they're not on benefits. So this ripple effect of the cost of living, what are people saying to you when they come to you for help?
We've got a lot of people who are struggling more with the childcare aspect than anything. So it doesn't matter if they're working full time and they're getting, say, I mean, even up to £2,000 a month. If you take into the cost of childcare, which can be up to £1,000 per child, then you've got your rent, which is again up to £1,000 for a 3-bed house now. What do you do with the rest? Where do you get your food? Where do you get your clothes, your basics, your toys, even down to whether you choose you're having your food or your gas? It's not enough for a basic family to be surviving on, regardless of how much you look at what they need to be raising. They need to look at what they're lowering as well. Yeah. So the cost of rent and stuff like that, and the childcare specifically, it's quite hard. I know, Martin, this is going to come in for you because you've just adopted two children. Congratulations. I know you're on adoption leave at the moment. But that is something we're hearing a lot today here for the people speaking to Macclesfield, is where is the help for the families in terms of, you know, going to work? A lot of people are saying it doesn't work out. The maths doesn't add up in terms of trying to get people to look after our children and trying to work. The bills are just too high. Way
too high, and I think we've gone past the point now where people don't live within the area that they were born, so they don't have that footfall of mum and dad, nan and granddad to support them. They are moving outside of those areas, so then they are reliant on services like myself and Shannon, where we can then provide clothing for these children when they're in need, presents, food, surplus food, community fridges. If they do need to cut things, they need to really be looking at other bigger taxes to help.
Yeah, I think that sound you just made then is what a lot of people have been saying to me today, making that noise in terms of, you know, all these measures. Are they actually going to help people? Are people going to feel the difference? Shannon and Martin, thank you for coming down to speak to us here this evening. We're going to talk about another developing story now, but we'll continue to get reaction to the autumn statement. I want to bring you up to speed on what's been happening on the US-Canada border. There have been 2 people killed after a car crashed into a border control checkpoint. This happened at Niagara in upstate New York. We can bring you live pictures from the scene. The FBI describing this situation as very fluid. Our colleagues at NBC have been reporting that this vehicle crashed into the checkpoint at high speed before it then caught on fire and exploded. Initial searches of that vehicle didn't find any explosives. Reuters reporting tonight that the incident was caused by a reckless driver. Now, all of this comes just a day before Thanksgiving. Millions of Americans travelling to visit friends and family, many of them making those journeys today. Right, let's take a look at some of the other stories making news in the UK tonight. 4 men convicted of murdering Ashley Dale have each been sentenced to more than 40 years in prison. 28-year-old Ashley was shot dead in her home in Liverpool last year following a long-running feud involving her boyfriend. A gunman forced his way into her home before opening fire with a submachine gun. The mother of one of the 4 teenage boys killed in a car crash in North Wales has said that she is living a nightmare she just can't wake up from. Jevon Hurst, Harvey Owen, Wilf Flitchett and Hugo Morris were found dead yesterday after failing to return home from a camping trip in Snowdonia. And in their hometown of Shrewsbury, the community is now in mourning.
You know, I was mates with all of them together as a group and separately through the 5 years that I knew them. And I think I just wish I could have told them how brilliant they were.
Two of the government's chief advisors during the COVID pandemic have said that they weren't consulted before the Eat Out to Help Out scheme was announced. The former Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Professor Jonathan Van Tam, told the inquiry today that he had first heard about the plan on TV and said it didn't feel sensible. It came after his former boss, the Chief Medical Officer, Sir Chris Whitty, also said that he was never told about the plan.
Eat Out to Help Out?
Yes.
Did you, Professor, were you consulted on that scheme? We've asked the same question as Sir Patrick Vallance and Sir Chris Whitty. Were you involved in that?
Absolutely not. The first I heard about it was, I think, on the TV.
Still to come on the UK tonight, I'm going to be finding out what the people of Macclesfield have made of the Chancellor's autumn statement today. Stay with us for that. We'll be chewing over the statement with our panel of experts as well from the local business community here. Sorry about that. Hello, welcome back to the UK Tonight. We are live in Macclesfield. We're going to talk to more of the business perspectives here in Macclesfield after what the Chancellor announced today. I'm joined by Jess Newsom, HR and Operations Director at the Tender Cow Restaurant Group. They've got an outlet right here in the Picture Drome. Richard Slater as well on the end there, Managing Director of independent travel agent Henry Travel. And in the middle of our panel, tax advisor Chris Bentley, director at Hart's Chartered Accountants here in Macclesfield. Welcome to you all. Jess, I'm going to start with you. Anything in that autumn statement that's going to help you guys at the tender cow?
Very little, to be honest. So obviously business rates staying the same, that's great. You know, it would have been really difficult if they jumped up again next year. However, there's very little else. In fact, obviously I'm happy for people with the minimum wage increase, but you know, that's a huge strain on our business. We're kind of in a position where, you know, profit margins are really slim, and to all of a sudden have increased labour costs as well as the food costs and energy crisis, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I mean, Chris, this will be something you'll be hearing from a lot of your clients who are going to be ringing you up today, probably tomorrow, going, anything in there for us? What can you say to independent business owners, the self-employed, the clients you look after, about what's in there to help them?
I think those who are self-employed or who operate as partnerships, they'll probably be quite happy because they'll see the benefits of the national insurance cut for the self-employed, that 1% off and the abolition of Class 2 national insurance. However, the majority of small businesses operate through limited companies, and small limited companies probably won't be very pleased with the budget. The owners don't really take big salaries, they take dividends instead. They won't see the benefits of that national insurance cut, and they'll be thinking, well, the business cuts, tax cuts that are put for business are all for big business.
Yeah. The devil's in the detail, isn't it?
The devil's in the detail,
As we keep hearing today, it feels like the government have given away with one hand and then quietly taken back with the other. Richard, what about you? What was in there for you? Because, you know, a lot of your travel business involves transportation. Was there anything in there that could help you at all?
There wasn't really, and I think what we'd like to see, or would have liked to see, was a little bit of a tax break on either air passenger duty or fuel duty, and more investment into speeding up sustainable air fuels for passengers, but also to get people back into the high street. We would like to have seen a small tax on online businesses such as large players to then reinvest into the town centres to keep the town centres alive.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because the one thing I've heard repeatedly from all the independent business owners in the Picturedrome and in Macclesfield today is that when the government talks about business, everything's under one umbrella, but that umbrella pretty much just looks after big business, big corporations, big organisations that can afford to take the kind of, you know, taxes you're asking for. Just, is that the sense you get?
Yeah, definitely. I think in terms of small independent businesses where, you know, the nature of our business is that we then support other small business, and it doesn't, it kind of feels we've been forgotten.
Yeah, and it's the cost of living that's squeezing everyone as well, isn't it? Before this autumn statement, the Prime Minister said, inflation, we've met our target, it's half. People should feel better off. Whether it's from a business perspective or a personal perspective, are any of you feeling better off at the moment? Do you see yourself feeling better off anytime soon?
No, not at the moment.
Very short, sharp shake of the head and a no. And that is the message we've been getting loud and clear. Chris, from your point of view, I mean, Richard, you made your point as to what you would have liked to see from the Chancellor. What do you think the Chancellor could have come up with that would have really looked after independent business and people running smaller businesses more?
I think...
What would have been some of the easy wins?
An easy win would have been if they had... and it's technical, this, it's a bit technical on the tax system, but if they'd reduced the tax on dividends slightly, in line with the reduction in the national insurance, 1% off, that would have been appreciated because everyone would have then had the same benefit.
Yeah. And Jess, how are you feeling going into the Christmas period? I mean, it's busy and buzzy in here for a Wednesday night. I mean, you've had a constant stream of visitors in all day. But, you know, with people still feeling the squeeze, how are you feeling going into Christmas?
I think, you know, we're quite reactive and proactive as a business. We look at things. Today we've got a deal on which, you know, it helps.
It's all about the deals at the moment.
It helps. Yeah. But yeah, you know, it should be the busiest time of year, and at the moment it's not. It's not, and we're feeling it. You know, kind of coming out of COVID, we're still feeling it now. You know, people are feeling the pinch, and we rely on, you know, people
having a bit of disposable income, feeling a little bit flush, like they can go and treat themselves.
We're very careful and specific about the ingredients that we buy in, and
it's all local, right? That's what it's being told about everyone here, supporting the local economy. All the ingredients are locally sourced.
Exactly.
And that should be celebrated.
And it should be celebrated, and it doesn't come cheap, and we don't want to have to compromise on that. And it puts you in a difficult position, because we don't want to compromise on the quality that we're buying, but equally we need people to have the cash to buy it, and it's difficult.
Yeah. Still a difficult picture out there for so many people, business or personal. Jess, Chris and Richard, thank you so much for coming to talk to us this evening with the UK tonight. Really appreciate your time. Thank you. Well, as I said, I've spent the day here in Macclesfield, here in the Picture Drome, especially speaking to the traders and their customers to find out what matters to them and what they made of what the Chancellor had to say at lunchtime. Hello, Richard. How are you?
Hi there. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, really nice to meet you. Let's just talk about the autumn statement and what was in it for you. Obviously, you run this bar and a number of others. You run a brewery. Yep. Of course, there was that headline about alcohol duty.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? And was there anything else in there for you?
The alcohol duty, to be honest with you, is pittance, really. It's pennies on the pound, and for us, that doesn't, as a bar, that doesn't really do much for the. It's the big businesses that helps. It's your Carlsbergs, your InBevs of the world, where they're producing millions and millions of litres of beer a year, where that's going to help them a little bit. But for us, it's not really a huge amount.
At the moment, our profit margins are very small, and business rates are another bill for us that we don't always feel are appropriate to how much we help our high street, our town, our community, and it isn't reflected in the same way.
From April next year, the government are going to increase the full new state pension by 8.5%. Is that good news for you guys?
Very nice, of course. But we're the generation who've had everything, from free education and so on. And we're supposed to be the ones who vote Tory anyway, so that's clearly why they're doing it, I would think.
There was nothing on childcare, which I know a lot of parents will be looking at today and thinking that could have been a big something.
I think from my point of view, it would be great to have childcare. Like, I know they've started phasing it in, or they're going to phase it in from next year, but I think it would be good to have something sooner, because obviously, like for me, for example, I'm going back to work in February, and we've got no help with childcare costs.
Alfie, totally stealing the show there, little baby Alfie. If you scan the QR code on your screen, you can use our Sky News budget calculator. This will work out just how the Chancellor's announcements today affect you. All you need to do is answer a few questions about your own circumstances, and it will work out for you if you are better or worse off. Coming up on the UK tonight, we're going to speak to a young man who's raised £20,000 for good causes in Macclesfield this Christmas.
So we're all very excited at the zoo at the minute on the birth of our latest black rhino. She brings our numbers up to 9 here at the zoo. Hopefully she'll join us out on the paddock this morning. She's sticking really close to Mum. So wherever Zori's outside, you'll usually see the calf trotting up behind her. So the calf's just over a week old now, weighing at around 50 kilos when first born. She's very, she brightens up everyone's day. Everyone's very keen to see her. There's crowds gathering behind the restaurant trying to catch the glimpse of the rhino as she's out and about on the paddock. So she's an eastern black rhino. So in captivity, there's been over 100 births over the last few years. Here, our last black rhino was born 3 years ago. So we've waited 15 months for this little girl to arrive.
Well, from land mammals to sea mammals, first grey seal pups of the winter season have been born on the North Norfolk coast.
It's that time of year when we welcome the grey seals to Blakeney Point on the North Norfolk coast. And over the next few weeks, we're expecting somewhere in the region of 4,500 pups to be born. It's staggering when you go out there just a couple of months before, and there's basically no seals there, and then in the space of just a couple of months, 4,500 pups are born. Each pup will have a mum, so that's another 4,500 seals, and then there's the bulls, the males as well. So probably somewhere in the region of 15,000 seals will be on Blakeney Point over the course of this winter. So we play a really important role working with our volunteers to help manage disturbance to them. So we have visitors who are really keen to come and see them for obvious reasons, but they are wild animals, and this is a really important part of their life cycle. So it's really important that we respect them and we give them space. So we have staff and volunteers out on Blakeney Point right now, ready to welcome visitors, help them to understand what they're seeing in front of them, but to explain how they can observe them safely, asking them to keep their distance and helping to protect the seals.
I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent. We take you to the heart of stories that shape our world.
Hello, welcome back to the UK Tonight Live from Macclesfield. Coming up, I'm going to be joined by a young man who walked from the centre of Macclesfield to Paris, all to raise money for those in need this Christmas. But before we talk to Henry Moores, we get across to Sky Sports News for an update.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
Welcome to the Roast restaurant here in central London. We are lucky enough today to be joined by 3 elite athletes. Now they're going to be cooking a cultural dish all related to their heritage. It's going to be fun. Let's go see who they are. Right, we're very lucky. We've found a gap in the training schedule of a great British Olympic athlete. Lavia Nilsson's joined us in the kitchen, cooking for us today. What have you got for us, Lavia?
So this is a traditional Sudanese dish. That's my mum's heritage. It's called mahshi in Arabic, but it's basically a stuffed vegetable dish. It's got rice, and we're doing a vegan version today with some brown lentils instead of mincemeat. So yeah, really excited about it. My sister and I, we learned from our mum, you know, the value of a home-cooked meal.
And you're sort of growing up in your household, I think you said your mum was Sudanese and Egyptian, and your dad was from Denmark, right? So quite a multicultural household.
Yeah, my mum, you know, she taught us to appreciate food from every culture, mainly Sudanese food. We never sat in front of the television. We always sat on a dining table, always talking about school and sport and everything like that. So, and the good thing about my heritage is that the Sudanese diet.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Thanks, Teddy. Right, let's take a look at the weather.
Warm memories wherever you go. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, the rest of the week is looking drier than it has been recently, but it will turn noticeably colder by Friday. There's going to be a rather murky evening ahead, with hill, fog and patchy drizzle in the west and more general rain in the far north. Many places will be dry. Little change overnight, but the more general rain in the north is going to move into central Scotland, with showers following. It's going to be mild overall, but it will be windy in the north. You can expect gales on coasts and hills there, possibly severe over the Northern Isles. It's going to be quite cloudy again tomorrow morning, but there will be some sunny breaks, mostly east of higher ground. Southern parts will be mainly dry, while northern areas will see further drizzly outbreaks and some more general rain spreading from the north. Sunny spells and showers will follow to northern Scotland a little later. It's going to stay very windy for the north, although the worst of those gales will ease up. Rain will spread to central parts later as increasingly wintry showers take over more of the north.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Now, we like to leave you with something weird or wonderful on the UK Tonight. And my next guest has done something wonderful. He decided to do something rather special to spread some happiness in Macclesfield this Christmas by walking the casual 500 miles to the city of Paris. Henry Moores was inspired to do something to help people when he went travelling with a friend. He finished the challenge just last weekend and he raised well over £20,000. Henry is here with me. How are the legs?
Yeah, legs are fine. Everything's recovered now.
I think. Slightly recovered, some little pains walking, but we're good.
That's the beauty of youth. You could do the casual 500 miles, put your feet up in Paris for a couple of days and you're okay. Talk to me about where the idea came from, because you really wanted to give back to families who are struggling at the moment in Macclesfield.
Yeah, the idea, it's been something I wanted to do for a while, like a massive walk. And I think personally, deep down, like, everyone wants to do something charitable, you know, you might want to do something yourself, but certain things get in the way in life, like jobs, marriages, whatever, certain situations. And I felt the end of this summer was like the perfect opportunity for me to announce I was doing something like this.
So who's going to benefit? Because we're going into the Christmas period and we know with the cost of living, so many families are struggling right now.
Yeah, so there's 3 food banks across the northwest currently. So Create in Macclesfield, Silk Life Food Bank and Manchester Central Food Bank. Also Age UK and another charity called Re-Engage, who help treat vulnerable adults and care for them and basically company.
Yeah. And what was the total? Because I said over £20,000, but you said that donations have still been coming in. So what's your final total?
Yeah, so on GoFundMe it's 20,560, but I've had a few private donations, some cash donations from shops, so it's looking more like 22,500.
And you'll always get the relatives that try to slip you a bit of cash as well, so that's all got to go into the pot.
Yeah.
But just what was it like walking the 500 miles? Because that's quite daunting on paper to see that written down. What was it like to actually do it?
Yeah, so looking back now, you're not thinking of the whole picture. You're thinking of every day is one little step. So I think if you were to look at Macclesfield to Paris, like say in one big go, it's really daunting, and you'd never do it. But if you look at it in little steps and stages, it really helps to sort of ease the idea of it. Really. It makes it easy to think of.
And it's going to make such a difference in the Christmas period to, like you said, all of those charities, you know, from Age UK to family charities as well. And you know what, Henry? There's a little something for you today as well from the autumn statement, because I don't know if you've had a chance to watch it today, but the Chancellor's giving you a little something back. How old are you?
21.
21. Well, this was announced previously. I don't know if you heard the minimum wage going up as of April next year to £11.44 per hour. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, it's great, to be honest. It's great to go up, isn't it? I'd rather up than down, so it's good news.
What's it like being in your 20s at the moment with the cost of living and working and things like that?
I'd say difficult because a lot of 20-year-olds are going out to drinking, blah-de-blah, and you know I do that myself, got partying, drinking. A lot more before this, not as much now, but you know it's expensive. The part of my parents expensive, food's expensive, transport.
Well, if anybody deserves a pint or two and a bit of a party, it's you, Henry.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, fabulous causes that you've been supporting. Well done, well done. Well, that's all from the UK tonight. You can catch up on all the highlights on our webpage. Coming up next, it's a special programme from Jerusalem with Yalda Hakeem. Stay with us.